basically what we do with Lunch and Learn is follow the lead of people most impacted by racism in the community of Milwaukee. And I had you on my potential guest list for quite a while, and now I've gotten to know you better, and I'm so happy that you said yes. So, Deania, why don't you talk about what it is that matters most to you, and what do you wish people would get to understand more deeply? We record this, and they go onto our website. So I want to thank you for joining the League of Women Voters here today on April 15th. So go ahead, Deania, introduce yourself as you would like to.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for having me. So what is there to know about me? um, I think just as a young child, I always wanted everybody to feel like they belong. So, if it was the kid that was in a wheelchair, if it was the kid that was overweight that people teased, if it was the quiet kid, I was always like the really tall, lanky kid. So maybe that was part of it. I kind of got picked on for that. But I just never liked people being excluded, I guess. So when I went to UW in Milwaukee for a bit, I joined the Black Student Union, and we did a lot to um, try to work on social justice in that area. And then I had one daughter, and we moved to Greendale. We had some racial issues that occurred there. Um, that we tackled, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But even with my daughter, she was the only child. I always told her to, if you see somebody sitting alone, go talk to them. Don't leave anybody out. Um, and I think that came forward in the work that I do now, which is health equity. But prior to that, my daughter was called a racial slur at high school. I came up to the school and talked to them about it, said, what are you going to do? They pretty much told me, hey, it was her first offense. And I'm like, so if she hit somebody, do you say that's their first offense? Is that okay? And they was like, well, no. And I was like, well, racial slur, it's like getting hit and it should have some consequences. And so we left, and my daughter was like, I don't feel like they really listened to us. And I was like, I don't either, but hopefully, it doesn't happen again. Well, 3 days later, it happened again. And when I came home from work, she told me she had been suspended and that the police officers had talked to her. And I said, for what? And she said the girl called her an N-word again, and that they got into an argument, and they took her to the office and had the officers come in and talk to her. And I was like, officers? Like, did you hit her? Like, I was really like confused. Like, I was waiting for the candid camera to come out because she has never even been to like like a principal office for anything. So I was like so shocked. And so, um, and it was on a Friday. So by the time I got home, I couldn't even call to even figure it out. The next day was prom. So all I knew was she was not allowed to go to prom. We had her dress, we had everything. It was a horrible situation. And so she told me again what happened, that she didn't hit the girl, that she just kept saying, why you keep saying that? Why do you think it's okay? The officers told her, well, it's going to happen again. You have to be able to control your anger. You need to be able to do this. And I was like, what is going on? I never got a call. And at that time, I worked for Greendale. So I was like, they knew where I was, like why they couldn't call me. I could have came up there, we could have dealt with the situation. So anyway, it was a very traumatic experience to say the least. And we
Wow.
fought over a year to get that expunged from her record. Um, and at that time, I
Wow.
just knew it was wrong, and I think when you know something's wrong, you just, for me, I just couldn't let go, and I talked to my daughter about it because I'm like, you're going to be the one at school. I don't have to be there. And I want to make sure that you feel safe. And she was like, no, I want to fight it because they're going to keep doing it to other people. So we just had like a little protest outside. It was like literally me, her, and four of her friends with signs. And, we just was like, if they're not going to listen, we need to have other people listen. And then I wrote something on Facebook, and it ended up getting like a lot of views, and people were emailing me, and then they start emailing the school, and it was people from all over the state. And then the news picked it up, and then the newspaper picked it up. And then I was talking and we had like a press conference and somebody said, um, you're not doing it right, Deania. And I said, look, I don't know what what the proper way to do it. All I know is to tell my story. And I think that has the same thing I did with health equity. It's like um, we had a clinic that was closing that was very prominent to that community in Metcalf Park. Um, Jessica's a part of that committee too, but anyway, um, and they have a lot of kids there who had lead poison. And we went and we even got to meet with the CEO, and they pretty much was like, well, nope, we're still going to close. But, um, we could maybe get something else there if you want. And we were like, no, we want a healthcare center. And they still closed on December 8th, a year ago. And a lot of people was like, well, that's it. We got to just move on. And I'm like, no, it was the same thing. I felt like with my daughter, like, it's not right. And like, I don't know what's going to happen. I remember Jessica was like, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, I was putting on the brave front, but I really didn't know. I just knew like, we can't let it go. We can't let it, we have to keep fighting. And we did. And as we continue to fight for the healthcare, we did eventually get some movement um, where they agreed to at least allow a federally qualified healthcare center to open in that clinic, which a federally qualified health center, they get more money for Medicaid patients. And a lot of hospitals don't like to take Medicaid because they don't get as much money as private pay. Um, so that happened. They signed the papers in October and they're going to find out in June. And then Trump came. And so we don't know who's freezing like all these federally funded situations. So, you we'll see what happened. But I guess my thing is if you know what it's the right thing to do, you have to keep fighting, even if you might not get the outcome that you want. Just know that you did your best to move the needle a little bit more. I mean, in those two cases, like the hospital, at least we did get the federally qualified center, maybe if they get funding. With my daughter, what ended up happening was we ended up creating another group called PAGE, People Advocating for Greendale Equity. And we continued to fight because once that happened, other parents came and talked to me and was like, oh, my kid had this happen, or this happened to me, and that happened to me. And, I wasn't able to do anything. So we realized, of course, like it just wasn't my daughter. And there need to be huge systematic changes in the schools. So we did have like hate speech policy was implemented. We did have some other things to really work in the favor of BIPOC students. But at the end of the day, and I think another parent told me this who had a daughter who was autistic, and she was fighting for different things. She was like, Deania, when you're the first, your kid pays the biggest price, like Ruby Bridges paid the biggest price, all the first pay the biggest price for people after. So yeah, it did affect my daughter, I think, mentally. Like it was a lot of at the time, I think when you're going through it, you're just going through it. But I think after she was able to kind of let things settle, it did really affect her. She lost a lot of friends, like some teachers stopped talking to her. So it was very traumatic. In the end, I think she still would have said that she wanted to do it, but it was a big price to pay, for your kid to do it. And so, I think that yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was tough. I'm not gonna say it wasn't tough because it's your kid. And I got people on social media writing me, telling me that, we should just go back to Milwaukee. And why are we talking about this school? It's a great school. And it's like, well, we live in Greendale. And if we didn't live there, that justifies racial slurs. Like it was so crazy. It was crazy. And so and I was almost fearful, like, are they going to come up to the school or do something, to my kid? But um, a year later, a student came up to her and said, somebody called me the N word, but I don't want to report because I don't want what happened to you to happen to me. And that's pretty sad because that's what ended up happening is that people don't want to report it then because they don't want the backlash. But my daughter walked her to the office and said, "No, you need to report it, and I'll be with you." So that was good, that at least that student realized that there was somebody with her. And I think in all the work that I do and the work that I think I'm sure leagues of women voters do is to show other people that they have a voice and that they can use their voice. And we never know how what we do affects somebody else. So I hope I said
No,
I answered your question.
Did
yeah,
you ever contact the NAACP on this?
Yes, I did.
And what did they say?
I I contacted them, and I think they
Uh-huh.
were going after a group of different people. And one of the person from the NAACP, he did write the school and say that he didn't feel like it was, you know, done well, but like he never came to the school and like,
Oh,
um,
no.
yeah, so it wasn't really the support that I was looking for. But yeah, I went to everybody I could. I even tried to go to a lawyer, like, but they wanted like $5,000 off the top,
Way over
and
there.
it wasn't even to tell me like just to say, "Oh, we can get it expunged." I'm like, if I'm paying $5,000, I need more than that. So we end up getting ACLU. They end up coming on board, and they really helped us a lot, um, because they were able to pull records. They were able to really show the hurt and the harm that they caused. And I went to DPI, and with ACLU, we end up writing a plan with the school to say like, you need to have annual assemblies on race. You need to have staff members who are trained on bias training. You need to have, if somebody's called the N word, like with my daughter, nobody ever talked to her. Like you need to be checking in with that student, especially with somebody who's trained or somebody that they feel comfortable talking with to make sure that they're feeling okay. So we had like a list of things that we kind of wanted the school to do, and the school agreed to do. And so that happened for like a year. It was kind of during COVID, like a little bit after COVID. And then after that, they stopped again. They just kind of just stopped it. I was like, what happened to the assemblies and what happened to this and that? And they was like, oh, we think we did enough. We did the spirit of it. And I was like, uh, no. I just had a parent contact me saying that they were on the bus chanting, when I say in, you say er. And they were
oh,
saying that word, and the parent didn't want to come forward because the daughter didn't want to come forward. It's just very, I don't know what the word is. Like the harmed person doesn't want to come forward. They feel like embarrassed to even fight for themselves. They just want to blend in and like not be seen. And it was, I did talk to the parent and try to get her to really come forward, but I don't know. It's very difficult for people because they think of retaliation. But I'm like, when you let things like that go, what about the other kids, even the white kids on the bus who hear that
I'm
and
surprised
nothing gets.
somebody didn't record that and just put it on Facebook. You didn't have to show who said it, but had to record the chant because the internet is a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool.
I think it's almost like they're so used to it. I mean, that's what I feel because nobody
Yeah.
reported it, and I knew about it, but it wasn't my story to tell, right? The parent kind of came to me in confidence, and so, but
It should be excuse me, I'm gonna stop. You should be, I'm old head. I'm old head. I'm old head. It should be anybody's story to tell, and you could tell the story anonymously, but it needs to be told. And I don't know how you make people brave enough to tell their stories, but they could tell them anonymously. I'm a journalist. You could tell that, excuse my language, tell that shit. I'm sorry, it just, I get
No,
riled.
it was wonderful. When she told me that, I was baffled. And
Mhm.
I went to the school, and because once, I'm notified, I need to share it. So I went to the school and talked to the school, because it was a middle school situation. And we talked to the principal there and encouraged the mom to talk to the school. And she did say she did report it. But I don't know. I think sadly, it's like if it's not outwardly known, a lot of people don't want to deal with it. They want to sweep it under the rug. It's like, reminds me a little bit like MPS
It
led, like
builds, it builds.
led there. I feel like people knew. It's just like once it got reported and the media picked it up, then it's like, oh, now we have to handle it. I don't know why we can't handle these things prior to it being put out in media. So anyways, my whole thing was, yeah, we went through ACO, we thought we were done, and then we had to go back again with those claims. Like, people are saying this on the bus, and we had another girl, she had a situation, and I said, it's not going to end by one assembly, 4 assemblies, 5 assemblies. It's something you have to, ongoing things you have to do to change the environment and the culture of the school. Nobody's saying that the school is teaching that, but if you allow it, then you know, it's the same thing. Like, I couldn't swear at home, right? And so maybe when you're with your friends, you might do it because you're like, oh, I could get away with it. But then, you knew, like, when I'm at school or I'm in front of a teacher, I don't do it. So the school should be the same way. We don't tolerate racism. We don't tolerate hate. We don't tolerate fighting, or what, you know. Yeah. So we ended up going back to them again, and they agreed again to do the things that we asked. And so it's a constant thing, and it's hard because really it's the impact that families that we need to really come forward, but a lot of them have so many other barriers that I don't know if they want to. I see Jean, your hand is.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to commend Deania and her family for being the, really setting the stage for a lot of DEI advocacy work in the county, because if it wasn't for the work that she did and the victories that she won, I wouldn't be where I am in Oak Creek. She kind of left a few breadcrumbs for us to follow. And what I would like to encourage this group, as well as Deanna's group, is if we could develop a toolbox and really have like a speakers bureau to support families when these things happen. In particular, I'm old school, even though I'm younger than you, Ms. Liddy. So I understand what you mean by activism and moving at a pace where you lift your voices and be very persistent. However, I've been on the journey that Deania was on for 4 years now, and we have barely moved the needle in Oak Creek, Franklin.
I hate to tell you, I'm going to cut you. We're back in the 60s. We got, we got an orange person who's head of the country. So I don't understand why people are so surprised. Read your history. If I would go up that school, I would tell the history teacher what was going on in the 60s that's going on now. It's just history repeating itself. This is not new. It's not new.
Miss Liddy, it's not new for you and I, but it's new for the younger generation.
The younger generation, because I'll take ownership. We failed to tell them their history. We failed to tell them, you got to be, I'd say, oh, we don't have to be better. Yes, you do. It has not changed. We have failed to share their history thinking, oh, everything is hunky-dory. No, it's not. It never has been that.
And I concur with you. And that's where
let me calm down. Let me calm down.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I love it. I love it. We need that energy behind what we're discussing. And what I'm saying is a toolbox, as well as an advocacy group like people like yourself who are journalists, to write the story the right way, instead of us going to media that only, kind of softly introduces what we're going through, right? And we're in a time, like you said, social media takes off and it does its thing, but we still need to have calculated tools to use so that we all can say, yep, we checked all 10 of those steps as we were going through the process. And here are the people that can help you on the legal team, the journalism team, and things of that nature, because what's falling by the wayside is lack of knowledge. People just don't know. And when they get into these situations, they reach out to Deania, it sounds like, but then they don't know what's next because they think they just give it to Deania and she runs with it. There's things that those people who are victimized still have to do to move the needle. And a lot of times they run away. If you Google my name, you'll see that I've been out there. And even today, I got a letter from the school district stating that my claims were not substantiated again. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to do it again. And then if you all were to watch me and my comments at last night's school board meeting, you will see that we have a lot of what I consider corruption with the school board and the people that are making the decisions. So obviously they're not going to side with me if I'm showing them where they're not taking every step that's needed. So this is public information, what I'm speaking about.
Yep.
A lot of our school districts, as Ms. Liddy said, we're going to be under this situation due to the administration that we're facing. But those of us that are like-minded, we still have to help put some kind of toolbox together so that the ones that don't know any better can do something. And one of my things, I love the league, I love the education, I love the DEI advocacy that's going on. However, what are we doing in the off season when there's not an election? What are we doing or what are we advocating for when there's not an election cycle? So right now we're in the down season for several months. This is an opportunity for us to get behind some of these educational issues and things that we know are taking us back to the 60s. And
excuse me, taking us back, we never left.
well, Mother, I think
we're under this illusion that things really change, but if you pay attention, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. So we're under this fairy tale world here.
Well, I think how things happen changed, right? You know, but I also agree with you that there needs to be a toolkit, and we did try to like come up with one. I think we can continue to work on that so that people understand like what steps they need to take, because even when I was going to go for an appeal, like there's time limits for certain things to happen.
Yeah.
So like if you want to get moved, if you don't know about it, you know, you could miss those opportunities. So I mean, I do think it's something that is needed. And I think the other thing is, if this would have happened in Milwaukee, you know, my daughter wouldn't have been the only one, right? Like she would have had other people who look like her to support her more. So, and I don't know if a kid would have said that if there were more kids who were African American. Like I do feel like when you're one of, like in her class, she could go the whole day without seeing another Black person. You know, there were Black people in the school, but it was such a small number. You know, I think it's like 3%. So they feel empowered, I guess, because it's just you. So I do think, you know, that's where we need white kids and white families to have these conversations and say, like, if you see this happen, you need to be an upstander and call it out. Even if you don't feel comfortable saying something to the person, you need to stand by the person who's been attacked. Hey, I heard this happen to you, Janet. That's not right. I'm here for you. Let me walk you to the thing. I'm going to tell my parents. I'm going to write an email. Like, what are some things that they can do to support another person who has been victimized? Because it's going to take, especially in these suburban schools, a lot of times it's going to take people who are not that race to help support. And so when people, you know, look at my daughter and say that's bad, it's like, yes, but do you want your kid to go to a school where that's common words that's been used? Like, I mean, I couldn't, if I heard people saying words about people's sexuality or their disability in a derogatory word, I wouldn't feel comfortable. If my daughter was coming home like, oh, they called that person blah, 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 like I would have an issue with it. Yeah. So we need more parents to say, what is going on? What is happening at the school? I don't want my kid to grow up where this type of language is allowed. Yeah. Go ahead, Liddy.
Okay, when you moved to Greendale, did you have to talk with your daughter about what could happen? People who move into areas where you're minority, you have to have this conversation. What could happen? Because if Barack Obama, the president of our country, tell his daughters, have the conversation about what could happen in where you being a minority, what could happen? Do parents have this conversation? You got to have, I mean, you don't want to have the conversation, but you got to have the conversation when you move there.
Conversation, it still doesn't sting any less. I mean, we've had the conversations. She was, you know, but it doesn't, you know, like I've had the conversations with her about the police pulling you over. And like recently I was pulled over by the police. I'm an adult. I know what can happen. My heart is still racing. I'm still scared. You know, once it happens to you, you still are like, wow, I can't believe this is happening to me. So yes, I had the conversation with her, but it still doesn't make that path easier. And you expect to be able to go to these adults who are your teachers, who you've had conversations with, who supported you, and then all of a sudden they're not talking to you. That's a big pill to swallow at 16, you know, and to lose things that you weren't even in the wrong. Like, so she didn't go to prom. She was on the swim team what? She couldn't go to 2 swim meets. I mean, it was a lot that she still got taken away, though after a year of us fighting and everything, and a new superintendent took over, they did expunge it from her case and they did apologize. But what did she lose? You
Yeah.
know, I mean, somebody could say, what did she gain? But she lost a lot to get to something that she should have never lost. She could never go back to prom. She could never get those swim meets back. She can never get the taunts. And like you say, social media can support you. It can also tear you down. You know, they
Yeah.
can also write and say the meanest things about you as a person, and that's tough. So
And
it's
in
it was tough.
2025, when you look in the mirror, tell her it's gonna happen again. I'm 73 years old, and it's gonna happen again. Let me tell you, it ain't gonna stop. Look in the mirror. I'm a Black
Janine, I saw
female.
your hand was up too.
No, I just wanted to give my response to Miss Liddy's question if you spoke to your kids. So I've lived in Oak Creek for 20 years, Miss Lydia, and I've raised 4 children that came through the district. And we moved here from Whitefish Bay. So just to give you an opportunity to see
Okay.
that I had 2 suburban districts to compare what my children experienced. My older daughter didn't experience racism in the facet that Deanna's daughter did, but her racism was reverse racism. It was the Black students that were coming in from Milwaukee that taunted kids that lived in the suburbs. So that was my oldest daughter. Then my oldest son, his was the same because his best friend was a white male and the Black boys didn't like that. So they bullied him. And then when it got to my youngest son, they assumed that he was from Milwaukee. So every time he was around the Black kids at school, he would get in trouble and they thought he was an outsider and he's only lived here. And then my last child, you can read about what happened with her situation in the Journal Sentinel, but she just hearing the N-word all the time, being treated a little differently by both staff and students. She would advocate for other students and that would also get her in trouble. So it's not always necessarily our white counterparts or our, our other counterparts. It happens to us because we're kind of pitted against each other when we get in those environments. And we have to be able to talk about all types of discrimination and not just race. And I love how Deanna said, it's disabilities, sexual orientation, or whatever. We still have to protect those young minds. And unfortunately, the generation that should be teaching that, they're not accustomed to having those conversations. So once again, your generation needs a toolbox on how to have those conversations. And then we need a toolbox from you all to say, these are the way we handle these situations. Because somewhere in the middle, all of us are needed, multi-generational. And I love the fact that we're having this conversation in a generational conversation, because all of my kids experience different things. My oldest is 34, my youngest is 18. So I've lived here for 20 years. The 18-year-old has been treated like an outsider. And in her senior year, I took her out of our public school system because of what was happening to her. And she had a culture shock going to a predominantly Black and brown school from her suburban school in her last year. So I have seen how, like Dania said, this breaks them down. So my daughter isn't graduating with her class that she started K4 with. She's graduating with some other kids. All of these things that you can't repair. Money can't buy it back. You know what I mean? So I understand and I support us really. It only takes the few of us on this line to really brainstorm and figure out how our organizations can rally around our school districts, especially for such a time as this, where the nation is in an uproar and they're dismantling the things that we consider the norm are no longer the norm.
Lydia, I'm going to ask you to just hold it for a second. If you have to jot it down, jot it down. 2 points. One is something that somebody shared with me, and it was, picture there are 100 cookies, and the billionaire is at the table, the worker is at the table, and the immigrant is at the table. And the billionaire scoops up 99 cookies and turns to the low-wage earner and says, "You watch that immigrant, he wants your cookie." So I think we're seeing some amazing examples of how we are pit against each other.
I'm-
Yanni and I were on the bus, and I was telling her one of the things I've learned is called the holy interruption. So when you hear that you're white and it's just landed poorly on a person of color, you can say, ouch, I'm not sure what you were intending by that, but it certainly hurt me to hear it. And is there a way you wish you could repair what you were trying to say? And we call that, as an ally, calling a person in rather than calling them out. And then lastly, I wanted Liz to talk about what we are doing in the league, especially like as Janine is talking about the toolbox. What kind of toolboxes, Liz, do we currently have? Because she's leading the DEI. And then Liz, when you're done, call on Liddy.
Please.
So Liz is trying
Sorry,
to
I had to unmute.
Yep.
What we're doing right now is trying to restart the DEI committee, and we're looking at what areas we need to prioritize. The main one that has come forth so far is community involvement. As part of the regrouping, we are having different people at different meetings, so I'm not sure where we're going to land at this point. But our next meeting is going to be April 24th from 2 until 4 at the Kumba Cafe. We're also looking at how we can partner with other organizations, and we are planning, and this is still really on the drawing board, but doing more with civic education. There are so many things that people aren't aware of in terms of just even how government functions. So the way that I would respond right now is to say we're at the ground level, and I came in late on this conversation because I was using the wrong address, but hearing what's being said about the school systems, it's not new, but if you haven't been involved with your own children for a number of years, it's almost like saying we've kind of forgotten what that part was like. And the idea that we need to have multi-generational conversation is an excellent one.
Yeah.
And let me just add, I want to make a general comment. I was talking to a student at MATC, and this will take about 2 minutes. The essence of it is he is a young man who, when I initially met him, he was a Trump supporter. And so we've been talking, and through the classroom, I've been making the connections between where we are in 2025 and where we have been, where we've come from. So one day I asked him to step out of outside the classroom with me. I said, this has nothing to do with this literature class that we're involved in. And I said, but I need you to talk me off the cliff and to tell me why I should continue doing what I'm doing as a social justice activist. I said, I've been doing this since I was 15. And to me, he made a very key point, and this also gets into what Liddy has referenced. He said to me, you have lived this. You know what it is. Those in my generation, we haven't had your experiences. So to me, one of the things we need to think about is, for instance, do we need to start having, I'm going to call it Saturday freedom schools? We need to really talk about the various forms of discrimination and why they're there. So that's kind of like an overview, but I'm staying in the fight and I will be bringing others along with me. So this is a great conversation, and I'll be thinking more about the toolkit that we need.
Okay, go
Liddy?
ahead, Liddy, and
Well,
then
I'm going on to that
Nadia.
multi-generational piece. because it goes to another story. Because I said we need to educate because we haven't done a good job of, I guess, passing it down. A friend of mine, white, gay, female, went to one of her groups and they're having a protest and stuff.
Yep.
One of the persons turned to her and said, "Oh, the boomers finally came out." She said, "Excuse me?" She said, "How do you think you got the rights you got now if it wasn't for us out there?" So we have done I said, "You don't get it." And so it's this education piece we have failed to pass down.
Yep. Okay, Deania, and Deania, can you
You
also?
you got us talking today, girl.
Yeah, you're an inspiration, and you should have seen her rocking it on Action Day when we were lobbying. But Deania, I'm going to also ask you, I'm sure you're trying to keep track of all the thoughts that we're sharing here, exchanging ideas. A new one for me is people saying, don't say you're going to protest, say you are going to protect. Deania, what are we needing to protect right now?
Oh, wow. Whew, how much time do we have?
We got
I think
time.
in general, I just think about the kids that are coming up, like we really need to protect our young kids. They're so innocent, and we need to protect democracy. I mean,
Yep.
we're losing it. And I think having talks about civic engagement is important because I don't think kids learn what it is early enough or enough. Like I think I had one class in high school. Like that's not really enough to really get an understanding. Um, and maybe even with the League of Women Voters, I think usually and what it is, but I see more like older women who
We
are
are.
our kids. And can we have a junior League of Women Voters where we have young
Mhm.
people start to get
Yep.
engaged, um, or shadow, or I don't
Mhm.
know talks. I don't know how schools are about that, but I just think we need to have younger kids realize their power earlier. Even now, we try to in Micah, we try to get people to realize their powers. So even though I talked about the clinic and how we got it, the major thing that I forgot is that it was the power of the people, the power of the families who went to that clinic, who said, "Look, this clinic worked for my kid. We need it here," and they advocated for themselves. So just the power of using their voice. I mean, even when you think back to civil rights, the youth did a lot. Like,
Yep.
I don't know if people realize how much the youth really put their neck on the line. And I
Yep.
think, you know, it's part of this social media and this microwave where things happen quick. And I think for the youth that if it doesn't happen right away, sometimes they get discouraged. But,
Mhm.
we need to really help instill in them that you're fighting for the long term. You know,
Mm.
these things might take a while. It doesn't mean that you don't fight for it. And look at things that has happened in the past, and there's even brilliant kids now. Sometimes you see all these kids on the news, they show you all these kids who are like not making the right choices. And when I worked in high school, when somebody would be like, "Oh, excuse me, or can I help you?" You were like, "Oh, wow, there are still,
Mhm.
nice,
Good
polite.
manners.
There are nice, polite kids here in the world too. They just need some directions. And if we can have a toolkit for kids who feel like they've been discriminated against, or a toolkit for people who like, what can I do? I would like to do something, how can I help? And a list of things, because everybody's not gonna feel comfortable speaking at the school board. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't initially, but it was for my daughter, so I pushed through.
Mhm.
Or, doing different things, but it takes everybody has a role. And if
Mhm.
you're a great writer, could you write a story? Could you write to the principal? Could you write to the superintendent? Could you write to Congress? Those are things you can do. Do you know somebody who could write? Do you know people who have a story? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do something. And like you said, if even in your family, there could be people who have racial issues or say things that and you're like, oh my God, that's grandma. Well, you know what, grandma, you still need to talk to grandma and say, grandma,
Mhm.
I
Yep.
don't feel comfortable with that, or
Mhm.
that's how you feel. That's not how I feel. Not that you want to get into an argument with grandma,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we can't be silent. One other issue, and then I'll open it up to whatever you guys have to say, is like on social media, there were like racial things happening. And, you know, of course, when I see it, I'm going to call it out because I just can't not call it out. But of course, then I get attacked and then I get blocked or whatever. And a friend of mine called me and said, um, oh, I knew that person did that, and they always talk like that. And whatever, I just don't like them. And I said, well, why didn't you say something? And she said, well, I didn't know what to say. And I said, but then you leave it on people like myself, right? I have to be the one to say something because nobody's going to say anything. And when you don't say anything, it's like you are accepting what they're saying.
Yep.
And we need more people who will say something, like it's tiring, especially I could hardly speak Virginia too. When you're in Oak Creek, when you're in Greendale and you're outspoken, it gets tiring to be the one to always have to bring it. Like, can somebody help me carry these bags and say, hey,
Yeah.
Danny, I'll call it out this time. I can speak at the school board this time. I can write a letter this time. Um, it would go a long way because I don't need you to call me outside of that and say, Danny, you did a good job. I need you there next to me
Yep.
at the board meeting. I need you there reading something. I need you there having conversations with the school board or with different people. That's more helpful to me than you on the side calling me from your home.
Mhm.
It's going to take a little bit of uncomfortable for all of us. Like, even though I know it's wrong, it's not something that I was like wanting to do because it's still a lot. I was trying to fly the plane and build it at the same time. I really didn't know what to do, but I knew what happened wasn't right. And so I think if there's more people out there who know that there are things going on, what can you do? Have these conversations with your kids. Do you hear this word at school? Like you say, we have these conversations with Black kids. White people need to be having these conversations too. Like, you should know that when you hear that word, that's not okay. What
Mhm.
that is rooted in and why they shouldn't say it and how they can speak up. And even if they don't feel comfortable speaking up at that time, like to come tell you and that you can take it on and say, okay, what happened? Tell me this, and I'll go to the school or I'll write something. But
Mhm.
it's I think all of us to help keep moving the needle,
Good,
forward.
Jessica, I was going to call on you. I see your hand is up.
Well, I know when I worked at MSOE, one of the things they talked about was teaching like bystander training. How do you teach
Yep.
people to not be a bystander?
Mhm.
You know, and I think a lot of people don't know what to do, what they should do, or what they should say. But, I think we're all responsible for to not be bystanders or for teaching that or whatever the training. I think in that context at MSW, it was more about like sexual assault or, sexuality issues. But yeah.
Thank you so much. And then you were working with Deani on another project because I saw you nodding.
That we when Children's Hospital decided pretty immediately to close one of the clinics that was around 29th and Fond du Lac. That was something that I had gotten involved in too, and we're continuing to be involved in that right now. So yeah. But
Thank
that was really an issue because they were say we had people that could get the lead testing there. It was a pediatric clinic, and people instead were sent to a north side location that was a couple miles away, or they were sent to a south side location somewhere around like Mitchell and Forest Home. And people were saying that in order to get Uber and take your 3 kids there, it would cost like $60. I think that was round trip. I mean, that was just insane to expect that someone could do that. And then the question is, Children's does have a goodly amount of money. They are not for profit. And yet, what are they giving back to the community? So I think that's a whole nother issue that we've been raising.
Excellent. I did hear yesterday on the radio that the money that should have gone to Milwaukee Public Schools about the lead paint, that the average age of a Milwaukee Public School is something like 75 or 80 years old. The average age of a typical public school in this country is 30. So we have
Oh, wow.
much older schools. We do have lead paint problems, and now they're not going to fund it. Janine, I was going to call on you again to talk about what do the Persisters try to do? So I know Janine through the Persisters, and one of my slogans is persist, insist, resist. So Janine, I know you've been building the bench and telling people, hey, if I'm speaking up, come on and join me. What is your impression of working with the Persisters?
So the Persisters do a really great job on a lot of the national and statewide advocacy, but I think we still have a long ways to go with the local because there's so much to do on the local lens. And you know, we have women from all walks, men and women from all walks of life and living in different communities. Some have students, some don't. So I haven't had any momentum yet with the Persisters, even though I post everything out there. Last night, none of them showed up.
Oh,
It was just the local people, and it's not just the Persisters. I invited some of the league people. I invited some of the leaders of change people that I know, but none of them showed up. And that's what I mean by the toolbox. And
yeah.
it goes to, I really appreciate what Jessica stated. You have to have that bystander training. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So when I say these things, they're like, well, I don't know how to do it. So here I am just in time needing a voice and they don't know what to do. And you don't have time to train because it's tomorrow. You know what I mean? Or it's right now. So that bystander training, that toolbox, I love the fact that Miss Elizabeth said freedom schools. Of course, you know, with our children today, we would have to change the name. It has to be something real snazzy, but the content can still be whatever you know, want to share in the educational realm. And then we also have to take it from how you would present it, Miss Lydia, and put it in this digital format that the young people would understand. So there's all this work to build these tools, and all of us are needed. So I want to put in a plug for Miss Mary Delgado, who is a member of the league.
Oh, yeah.
Because she has a wonderful training, white women facing racism that is coming up. And I've been advocating. I have talked to over 300 people about being a part of her training. However, we got the one side. What about the Black women facing racism, the Middle Eastern women facing racism, the Asian women? So you see how big this can get. When you start having these conversations, because all of us are having racial tension, but it's coming at a different angle for a different reason. My Middle Eastern sisters just, you know, the way they dress is the reason why they get attacked, and they're labeled as, you know, doing things that they're not doing. They're the sweetest people I know. And I'm like, well, how are people misunderstanding your plight here on earth just because of the way you dress or something that happened in history? Now everyone that comes behind you is experiencing the same thing. So yes, I am a voice to help, you know, support this. I work best as a speaker because I'm not afraid to get out there. However, I do like to have a focused message and understanding what I'm doing. And in support of what Deania said, I don't want to be the only one. I want to play tag team. This week it's all me. Next week is you. Next week is the next lady. Next is the next lady. Because we all have to have self-care opportunities, as well as this work takes a lot out of you mentally and physically. And on the other side of this, I was running for a school board seat. So I felt the drain of that, people calling me and talking about that and not getting the support I needed in that avenue, but still fighting the racial tension that was before me as well. So I would just like to encourage everyone to brainstorm what we can do so that if we have these meetings quarterly or what have you, I don't know what the opportunities are, that we can build up on it and come up with something that's really great and make a name for the League of Women Voters. In the down season, we came up with this toolkit.
That sounds great. And I did put Mary Delgado's email. This is for Jessica or for my women of color friends who want to invite white people to take on this issue. It's a 9-month program. So it's Mary D, well, just like MARYD 8@gmail. That's Mary Delgado. And this is a program that goes 9 months. And so they get started and then they birth it. And during that time, you're studying a lot of excellent material and you're writing and reflecting. And having a chance to practice this. And I do really appreciate what you said, Jessica, about bystander training. So final comments, I do want Diania to invite all of you to come to our retreat. And Diania, do you want to say something about Cinco de Mayo at the American Friends Meeting House at 10 a.m.? What would you like to tell them?
Come on out. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. When I had little kids, I was always like, okay, I'm 80% there because I don't have to cook dinner and get the kids ready. But it'll be May 5th at the Quakers meeting home. Oh, do I have the address? I could send it to you, and then I don't know if you could share it out.
And
but it is
anyone
May
can look it up. It's in River West, off of Humboldt.
Yeah. I think it's on Gordon Place. It's
Yes,
the
it is.
street. It's
Yes.
kind of in the back, but it's going to be from 9 to 4. We're going to be working on this topic of how do we reach, the community, and to help work on social justice. So yes, we need the real. We need Liddy there. We need
Yep.
we need people
Liz,
who are doing work and who've
Janine.
experienced.
Yep.
because
Yeah,
a
we
lot of
invite all of you. Jessica, we'd love to have you come. So this is a retreat from Micah, trying to figure out how we can be more relevant, how to meet the needs in Milwaukee. Micah has been around 25 years. Wisdom has been around 25 years. We took up 4 issues on this lobby day, and they're all important issues. So final comments, let's send Diania, and Liddy, could you start off with sending Diania some appreciation?
Don't get tired. Keep it up.
Let me parrot Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive.
Janine or Jessica?
I'm gonna quote Martin Luther King on mine. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter.
And I was going to say, Diania, just keep doing and being who you are.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. And you guys too, the League of Women Voters play a big role. I ran for school board too. You didn't know that many moons ago. And it was rough. It was rough, but I met a lot of people, and there are people who do want to do things, they just don't know how. But my thing is, do something. If you can't, I think that's a Martin Luther King. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. If you can't speak in front of people, that's fine. Write a letter. If you can't, but you can't be complacent, and we can't do anything. And you don't know what you would do until you have a situation like that. But sometimes I feel like people, if they don't have a experience in it, they don't want to get involved in it, and that shouldn't be the case. Anytime one person is hurt, we should all be hurt. So, let's all work towards being kinder and stepping up for those who need us the most. So thank you all for inviting me. I appreciate it.